Welcome, fellow stardust. Are you ready for a scare? I see you've come back for more. If you're new here, buckle up. And thank you for joining me today. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. Today's film review will be on thriller Captive.
Hello? Is anyone here? I got lost. I was with my boyfriend.
Right. I'm just happy you're safe.
This story follows Lily, played by Tori Kostick, who runs away from her abusive stepfather with her boyfriend Neil, played by Jareth Carey. When camping in the woods, they get separated. When she comes across a house in the middle of the woods, she asks the owner if she could use his phone. Evan, played by William Kircher, seems a bit too happy to see her. She immediately regrets her decision and tries to leave, but he keeps her from doing so. Lily soon realizes that Kevin is delusional and thinks that she is his daughter. In her plan to escape, she pretends to be his daughter. So I came across this film in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in. The writer-director Savvas Christou noticed that I had shared his trailer to my Rainbow Fright page, and we began talking about his film. So today I'll be sharing some of that conversation with you. This dynamic between Evan and Lily is really interesting. We see this young girl go from one abusive situation straight into another one. Because she has already endured what her stepfather has put her through, she doesn't react to Evan in the way that we would expect her to. She's not scared and sometimes even defiant, despite how small she is compared to Evan. We are sort of watching her come into her own. However, unlike her stepfather, Evan's aggression is coming from a good place. He clearly suffers from some kind of mental illness, whether that's from genetics, alcohol abuse, or both is unclear. It's obvious he did in fact love his daughter, but he just didn't know how to show it in a healthy way. He was obsessive, especially when it came to her races. This film highlights humans' inherent need to love or be loved, whether that's romantic, platonic, or otherwise. When a person finally fills that void in their life, it could be very difficult to separate them from that, even if it is a toxic love. People's minds and hearts are more fragile than people think. People can easily be manipulated, even the strongest of minds. I asked Savas how he came up with this idea, and this is what he had to say.
Started back in 2014 in Thessaloniki, Greece. On my way home after a long night out with friends, I shared a pizza slice with a homeless man. He was a great storyteller with happy vibes, but soon enough I realized that he was very delusional too. So after a long conversation with him, I went back home and stayed up all night to write down a synopsis of an idea that popped into my head while he was telling me his stories. Then, over the next month, I finalized writing the draft of the whole script and shared it with a close group of friends and colleagues for feedback, and 2 years later, in 2018, I had everything prepared to the last detail.
I appreciated Savas' attention to detail when it came to set design and props. That journal was the perfect artifact to carry this interesting story of twists and turns. He was also very careful in who he picked to portray this delicate relationship between faux father and daughter. Tori was an excellent choice. I really loved her big, expressive eyes. You could almost feel the shift that is happening inside of her. William Kircher was perfect for the role because he was able to both scare you, but also make you feel sorry for him and make you want to give him a big old hug. Even though he essentially has kidnapped Lily, you do feel a little bit bad for him. Here's what Savas shared with me about the casting process.
Casting took probably about a month, on and off. Fun fact, William reached out for the casting audition online, but he was back in New Zealand, so we made 3 or 4 long Skype calls, and when we both clicked, he flew to LA probably 1 month before shooting. For the role of Lily, we probably saw more than 100 girls, but when Tori finished her first audition, I turned to Melissa and we both immediately knew that she was the one.
With a good cast locked, you can only hope that your crew gets along and works well together. With a very low budget and a tight schedule, things can go bad really quickly. Luckily for Savas, the crew had really good chemistry. It was about a 3-week shoot, and some days were a little bit harder than others. They would have to sometimes get through 6 pages of the script, which is a lot. Other days it just felt like friends were hanging out, camping, and having a good time. In order to shoot a 90-something page script in just 3 weeks, so many things have to go right. Pre-production has to be on point. The next question I asked Savas was, how long was pre-production?
I started pre-production pretty much a year before principal photography, but the real catalyst to that was Melissa Gutierrez, the producer, who came into the project in just 3 months before shooting. That's when we really figured out everything together. All this time, especially during our discussions around the low budget and the limitations, I had to go back to the script and make changes, which was one of the worst emotions I've ever had in my life. Painful.
That's the hard part about filmmaking. It's one of the few art forms that has to completely transform sometimes just to please the people with the money. I'll say it again, filmmaking is a rich man's hobby. Captive premiered at Frightening Ass Film Festival in 2020, and it won the Audience Award for Best Thriller Picture at Nevermore Film Fest. At Horror Hound, both Tori and William won Best Performance, and the film also won Best Picture and Best Writing. They also snagged a screening at Panic Fest, and after that is when Vertical Entertainment released the film to VOD on May 7th, 2020. Savas explains though that there's still a long road ahead of them when it comes to film festivals. They just screened at Motor City Nightmares Fest, and they are also going to be screening in London at Fright Fest. The original name for this film is Catherine's Lullaby. Savas says that he likes this title a little bit more still, and personally I do too. I think it has more of a personal touch and describes Evan's vibe a little bit better. With that title, the movie cover could have been Lily sitting on the bed with her teddy and a knife poking out from under the bed or the pillow. That would have been just as enticing. But his friends, family, and even the cast and crew told him that he should change the title, and so Vertical Entertainment came up with Captive. He thought it was catchy, and so he just went with it. And it's a fine name. I just really liked Catherine's Lullaby. Savas has an extensive resume, and you can tell by watching this film that he really enjoys his craft. I'm excited to see what else he does, especially if it's more thriller and horror. Choosing to become a filmmaker is a really bold move, so I was interested in finding out why Savas chose this art form. Here's what he had to say.
I come from a family of artists. My grandfather and father are both painters, and also one way or another the whole family we are involved in music. My dad especially had a huge influence on me because I grew up watching him create every day. From a young age, I loved watching movies and then discussing them with friends. I started experimenting with filmmaking when I was about 16, and I got more into it during college studying fine arts at Aristotelio University in Thessaloniki. I wrote stories, gathered my friends, and organized them to shoot the movies on the weekends. In my 3rd year, I decided to go to an Erasmus program in Dublin and learn more about animation and experimental videos. Then, when I went back to Thessaloniki, I made the decision to present short films for my degree thesis. And I guess that's how the journey started.
Captive is a thriller that will keep you guessing. It's not going to satisfy any blood or gore hounds, but if you're looking for a different kind of hostage story, this is it. The cinematography is beautiful. We get the feeling of isolation while at the same time having this sense of warmth. As far as dislikes go, the pacing did drag on a bit in the middle. I felt like some of the scenes could have happened sooner, especially some of the flashback scenes, and they could have been a little bit quicker. And I also felt her boyfriend came looking for her a bit too late. But overall, I really enjoyed this film. I was super excited to have the opportunity to chat it up with Savas and find out more about the making of this film. Captive earns 3 rainbow skulls out of 5, and like I mentioned before, you can find this one on Amazon as well as Tubi. Well, thank you again for joining me today, fellow Stardust. I appreciate you being here with me. And like I mentioned in my last review, I am moving this month, so I have a lot on my plate, so True Crime and Nails is still on hold. But I will still be putting out horror movie reviews and hopefully still putting out music videos. So, if you haven't already, go ahead and hop on the Rainbow Fright Freight Train and hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell. That way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. I hope I see you next time. Peace.